What is going on, everybody? What is going on? The Catch fam, my name is John Dawson, and in today's video, we'll be breaking down three streaming options at the quarterback position and at the tight end position moving into week 8 of the 2023 fantasy football season. If you guys are new to the channel, this is all we do here all year round: free fantasy football content, redraft, dynasty, and best ball. If you guys are into that, be sure to subscribe on the way in. But more importantly, get in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys need. Any questions as we move into week 8 of the season, drop them down below. I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. Without further ado, let's hop right into today's video. All right, first up at the quarterback position, I'm going to go with Jordan Love, who is rostered in 67% of fantasy leagues. But if you're in a position where you need to start him, or if you're in a position where you can pick him up, I think he's a great start this week. Listen, I know the last 2 weeks haven't been so promising, but he gets a good matchup this week at home against the Minnesota Vikings, who are ranked 23rd in the league against the quarterback position. So they still come in 12th in terms of fantasy points given up to the quarterback position. So I think Jordan Love is in a good spot here. The last 2 games at Denver, at Las Vegas, were both away games. So I think he's in a position to bounce back at home. And I think that both of these teams are in need of a win. I mean, this is an important matchup for both of these divisional opponents. I think we're going to see points scored in this game. It's not like either of these defenses have been necessarily outstanding throughout the season. And, if we erase weeks 5 and week 7 for Jordan Love, he gave you 19 or more fantasy points in those first 4 starts of the season. So I think he's a good floor option. If you're able to pick him up, you need to stream a quarterback for whatever reason. I know we don't have as many buys or injuries occurring at the position this week, but you're in a super flex format, double quarterback, whatever it is. I think Jordan Love, a good start. Give him some faith moving into week 8. All right, next up on the list, I've got Sam Howell of the Washington Commanders, who comes in as your QB 11 so far on the season. The reason I mention him is A, because he plays the Philadelphia Eagles. Okay, so when you look at this matchup, a lot of people are going to think this is a bad matchup. It's the Eagles. But the Eagles are actually allowing the 8th most fantasy points in the league to the quarterback position. This is not a bad matchup for the QB position. This is a bad matchup for the running back position, but not for quarterbacks and not even for wide receivers. The Eagles are one of the worst teams in the league against opposing wide receivers. So I think Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, as long as he's healthy, probably not Jahan Dotson, but you get what I'm saying. I think that these receivers for the Commanders can have a solid day, and Sam Howell can have a solid day at home. This is a home game for the Commanders, so I think they're in a good spot. But on top of that, B, I think that Sam Howell, coming off of a bad performance against the Giants with 10.4 fantasy points, may be a player who is sitting at 48% rostered right now, according to the Sleeper app, that you might be able to pick up and start if you're in a position that you need to do so. I think he's a good option in super flex and double quarterback leagues, but I also think in single quarterback leagues, this is a good week to start Sam Howell. He's definitely a viable streaming option. Don't be too scared of this matchup against the Eagles, and he's still a top 12 quarterback on the season. If you erase week 7 and week 3, 16 or more fantasy points in every matchup, 18 or more fantasy points in every matchup except for week 1. So Sam Howell, definitely a streaming option as we approach week 8. All right, last but not least, call me crazy, but I always try to put a player on here who you can definitely go out and pick up if you really need to stream a quarterback this week, if you're desperate. I'm going to go with Mac Jones against the Miami Dolphins, who are allowing the 4th most fantasy points to the quarterback position so far on the season. Listen, for 3 weeks in a row, Mac Jones, this Patriots offense, looked like the worst offense in all of football. But they looked a little bit better in week 7, had some life, won a game against the Buffalo Bills, a really good football team. He had 19 fantasy points, over 270 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. So I think maybe there's a little bit of life and juice left in Mac Jones in this Patriots offense. It's a away game. Listen, I don't think that the Patriots are going to win this game by any means, even coming off of last week's performance. I don't think they're going to be able to keep up with Miami's offensive firepower, but they're certainly going to have to try. They're going to be playing from behind. They're going to need to throw the football. And while we do know this Miami Dolphins offense is arguably the best in the league, this defense is not good at all. I mean, they're straight up atrocious. So Mac Jones going to get some opportunities in this game. If you're in a super flex, a double quarterback league, you're looking for a decent floor. Mac Jones is rostered in 14% of fantasy leagues according to Sleeper at the moment. I think you can pick him up, get a floor for the week, and move on to better things the following week in week 9. Move on to tight ends. I'm going to start with Jake Ferguson of the Dallas Cowboys, who in his last 2 starts has been very good. 5.8 or less fantasy points. But before that, he had 3 games in a row with 9.8 or more fantasy points and a ceiling of 14.7 fantasy points at week 8. Here in week 8, coming off of a bye at home against the Rams, who are allowing the 4th most fantasy points to the tight end position, rostered in 52% of leagues, so he shot up a little bit after the bye week. It's a good matchup here. He might still be available in your league if you really need somebody to go pick up. I think Jake Ferguson is a decent player to throw out there, can give you a good floor. Maybe not the highest ceiling, but I won't be surprised if he gets closer to that 10-point mark moving into week 8 against the Rams. So I think that this is going to be a game where both teams are going to need to throw the football. I like Jake Ferguson. I think he's definitely a viable streaming option approaching week 8. Next up, we've got Gerald Everett of the Chargers, who at the moment is listed as questionable. He's dealing with the hip injury, so definitely monitor that. But he's only rostered in 26% of leagues. I talked about him on the last 2 waiver wire videos on the channel, and I really like Gerald Everett going into week 8 against Chicago. It's a great matchup. They're ranked 21st against the position, so they're still bottom 12 against opposing tight ends. And Everett, without Mike Williams on the field, outside of week 4, has really become an option in terms of pass catchers for Justin Herbert. And I like him a lot. When we look at the last 2 weeks, he's scored a touchdown in each of the last 2 games, has had 10 or more fantasy points in the last 2 games. A really soft matchup against the Chicago Bears. This is a high-powered offense that wants to throw the football. If Gerald Everett goes into this matchup listed as healthy, he's available for you. He's a great streaming option approaching week 8. Third tight end I've got for you guys, once again, for our third player at the position. We're thinking a little bit outside of the box, but I'm going to go with Michael Mayer, rookie for the Raiders. Looked impressive in week 6 against New England, 12.5 fantasy points, 75 receiving yards. Then in week 7, just 2 receptions, 3.3 fantasy points. But there's a good chance that Jimmy Garoppolo returns in week 8, which should help the passing attack for the Raiders. And he's still outsnapped veteran tight end Austin Hooper by a large amount in week 7. So it looks like Mayer is going to get the majority of the starting snaps. And on top of all that, the Detroit Lions are the worst team in the entire league from a fantasy perspective against the tight end position. They are allowing the most points to the tight end position on the season so far. It's a good matchup. Hopefully Jimmy G's back. If he's not, I don't like Mayer as much, but due to the matchup alone, he's still an option and definitely somebody you can consider streaming moving into week 8. And that'll do it for today's video. If you guys did enjoy the content today or find it helpful in any way, be sure to subscribe on the way out. This is all we do here all year round, free fantasy football content, redraft, dynasty, and best ball. But more importantly, get in the comment section down below. Let me know if you guys need anything moving into week 8 of the season, start sits, trades, waivers. What quarterbacks are you guys starting? What tight ends are you guys starting? Do you guys need to stream a quarterback or tight end? Whatever it is, any position, whatever you guys may need, let me know down below. I'll get back to you guys as soon as I possibly can. And with that, I will say thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. And remember, you saw it here on The Catch.